that was Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower. Welcome to the debut episode of the Fantasy Football Weekly Rundown, the weekly television show on YouTube that is dedicated to the Pigskin League, the most expert fantasy football league in Northeast Wisconsin and all the way around the world, as proven by the international nature of our membership. So anyway, the reason that we started with that song was because we like to consider ourselves the watchtower of the Fantasy Football League, the expert judges on what is smart, what is stupid, and really just the final determinant on all matters related to fantasy football.
We're the Pigskin Experience.
Yeah, we're the Pigskin Experience, just as that was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Now, in the past, we've been like a lot of those other amateur leagues where we'll have a little front page story with some cute anecdotes and maybe some funny lines and things like that. But we decided it's time to take this to video. We should be on ESPN, NFL Network, Fox Sports, whatever, but we need to start somewhere, and so YouTube's how we're going to launch into the stratosphere with that. This is a big-time league, and it's time to take it to the big-time presentation. We're going to have a weekly show now with under a normal, ordinary week, we'll recap the previous week's games, talk about the most boneheaded move, we'll talk about the savviest move, and then we'll look ahead to the week coming up with some predictions. But this is our draft recap and season preview episode. And some of you at home might be wondering, they're not the commissioners. Craig Imeson's the commissioner. So how come these guys get to be on TV? How come they're the ones that are speaking on behalf of everybody else? And the reason for that is quite simply, we're the best. And we would hope that you guys could learn a little something from our expertise and our analysis. We want to level the playing field. It's just not fair. I mean, between Eric and I, we have 7. That's right, 7 championships.
Well, I don't care if they get better. I'm glad to take their money.
Yeah, but we're pretty philanthropic in this regard. We want to have some good competition too, and we've already gotten rich off of our fantasy football winnings anyway. So we're kind of mentoring the more Padawan type of owners that are still in the league. Craig is a great guy, good commissioner. As many of you know, I was the founder of this league and ran it for 10 to 12 years. I can't remember which season, and I got tired of doing it. Craig has done a great job in my stead and has actually implemented a lot of good improvements. So I got to give him credit for that. But how many titles does he have? 0. In fact, among the founding fathers, the people who have been in the league from the start, I believe that Craig and Drew Susat are the only ones to have never won a championship. But in the case of Drew Susat, he's been a very competitive force throughout the years, while Craig has just been kind of the recipient of the most hilariously bad luck you can ever imagine. But I am proud to say that I am the only three-peat in this league's history with 5 championships total. And Eric here is the third person to pull off the repeat as of last year with his back-to-back titles. So why are we bragging? Because we just need to let you know why we're sitting here behind the camera and you're sitting at home like a jabroni.
What's that?
A jabroni? I'll ask The Rock.
All right.
Yeah, whatever The Rock is cooking, I think, is what the jabroni is.
Aha.
So anyway, I kind of represent the old guard a bit. Eric has been the one with some recent success. But I think that's going to change this year with my draft and the fact that I have absolutely no romantic entanglements, which were the reason for my struggles in previous years, especially the 2 years that I missed the playoffs.
So congratulations on your lack of a romantic life.
Hey, I'm focused. So I'm ready to rock, and that's bad news for the rest of you guys, because when I'm focused, I'm obsessed. When I'm obsessed, I'm dominant.
Is that perhaps why Gelhard tried to set you up with that one, perhaps?
The girl from Florida?
Yeah.
And she never called me, by the way, Gel. What was up with that?
That would have been a good distraction. Your draft would have went right down the same crapper when Terrell Owens got picked in front of you last year.
Yeah, well, that was 2 years ago.
Oh.
But I would have been driving to Chicago every weekend. So, yeah, it's probably a good idea for both my pocketbook and my fantasy football prospects. So, with that being said, we're going to start this portion of the show with what we consider some of the biggest steals or best values of the most recent draft that we held.
You have to start off by looking at this draft as a whole, just taking a snapshot of the whole thing, and saying that overall, a lot of the picks happened as we kind of scripted them to. We kind of projected the draft before the season and said, well, who do we think is going to go? Who do we think is going to take who? What are the needs for the teams coming in? And except for a couple teams who were oblivious to fantasy football in general, the draft pretty much we had it predicted and projected pretty accurately. But a few guys fell further than we anticipated. The people that grabbed them definitely deserve some props. I hate to start the show giving you a thumbs up, but I really like Jared Cook at 73 overall. I already thought that you had made a good grab when you picked up Witten. Both picks were pretty much right in front of me, which kind of hurt my overall tight end situation. But I have to say that, with the question marks around Witten's health, that Jared Cook not only provided a fantastic insurance policy for Witten, but it also gave you this awesome setup where if Cook actually meets the potential, the way he's played those last few weeks, every once in a while, the tease that he's been, that he could actually be a top 6 scoring tight end easily, way below where that would be valued as far as a 73rd overall pick.
7th round.
I mean, he might perform like a 37th overall pick, not a 73rd. So
yeah, a lot of people think he's the next Jimmy Graham. He's a beast of a physical specimen, a matchup nightmare. Now it's just a matter of can Jake Walker get him the ball. I'm encouraged that during the playoff weeks last year when he was on, I believe it was Dream Crusher, he had 9 catches for 103 and 8 catches for 169 in the score. So if he puts together for a full season, he could definitely elevate himself to that rarefied air of Graham and Gronkowski, and that's my hope. But if it doesn't work out, I got Jason Witten at the end of the 4th round.
Yeah.
So and his spleen's fine. It looks like he's going to be ready to go on Wednesday. I'm not starting him out of fear of that
spleen.
Yeah, spleen. But it looks like I might have really lucked out with how my team was situated. I really needed to get those tight ends late, and I think I got some great value there. So.
Well, no, we had some of our overall in the draft. A lot of quarterbacks ended up people got good value on them. And that would kind of tie into what you looked at as one of the steals of the draft.
Yeah, I got to say, Nick Larscheid, he's shown a lot more drafting maturity this year than in the past. He used to kind of go with his heart. But this year, he actually passed on Drew Brees. I mean, those of us who know Nick are like, Drew Brees. We just figured it was a no-brainer that when Brees fell to him, that he would have picked him up. But instead, he grabbed Chris Johnson, recognizing the fact that his team was screwed if he didn't get a running back early and 2 of them right away, because he had kept all those wide receivers. As it turned out, his patience, paid off as he was able to get the very solid Schaub at the back end of the 6th round. Matt Schaub has a 6'11" pick. That's what pick number 71, I believe, or something like that. But anyway, in previous years, Schaub had always gone in the 3rd round or the 4th round. I know his injury last year put him a little under the radar, and that is a concern. And can he stay healthy? But if he and Andre Johnson and Arian Foster all manage to stay healthy this year, this could be a tremendous get for the Picket Fence Cartel with over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns or more to look forward to.
Well, and I think it was good for Nick that he's able to wait as long as he did for a quarterback. I definitely think that, you picked Schaub a couple years ago, and you saw how he did for you. I don't think this guy's nearly as relevant as we had him in the past. Again, good pick, yeah, but that team's going to run the ball a whole lot more. I think it's for a reason. They got the best stinking running back in the NFL.
Well, another thing I got to say there is actually their defense is a lot better, and a lot of Schaub's stats in the past had been, garbage time in the 4th round when they're down by 20 points. So I can see, I can concede that point. That's a big concern for Schaub. Like, is he going to put up the same numbers with as much talent they have and with the running game, and also with the fact that their defense is so much improved where they're not going to be playing from behind so much?
So I really think Ben Roethlisberger at 91 was a better steal.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think that the reason Roethlisberger was a better steal than Schaub is that for Owen's team, one of the few places where you'd have some a little bit of like, okay, there's a concern here, is a starting quarterback, Cam Newton. You're not sure on the health. The way he plays, he could end up being another Michael Vick kind of headache. Having Roethlisberger as the 91st overall pick, 20 picks after Schaub, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Roethlisberger puts up better numbers overall in the year than Schaub. And you got him essentially almost 2 rounds later. So I would give Owen more credit, even though Roethlisberger is a backup. I would give him more credit for Roethlisberger than I would give Nick for Schaub, just because Nick had to take a quarterback then. He wasn't going to sit and wait till the 8th round, 9th round to grab a starter. So he had to grab the best guy on the board. Had he gone just a little sooner, he might have been in the Phillip Rivers territory. But again, I think Roethlisberger is going to be scoring in the Phillip Rivers territory this year.
Yeah, and I gotta say with Schaub, the reason I went with him as opposed to you went with Roethlisberger is the value, where Nick's getting a starter at 6'11", while Owen's getting a guy that could start much later in the 8th round. And the other guy that was a steal was Jay Cutler right after Roethlisberger, because he's got his new weapons now. They drafted Jeffrey in the 2nd round and have Brandon Marshall. So that's going to be a great steal, too. And that's not even to get into the Matt Ryan and the Phillip Rivers steals of the 5th round. Yeah. And, a lot of quarterbacks dropped because the position's really deep this year. And, after those first-round quarterbacks and those that were kept, I guess they just fell on the board after that because of the fact that the situation was, it's just one of those cases where the stars aligned. And speaking of the stars aligning, I would say the best steal of all was actually in the 1st round.
Man, it wasn't close.
Yeah. Well, normally the 1st round isn't a place where you'd call anybody a steal, but Frank Chu's 12 Galaxies here, Eric Drzwicki, landed Drew Brees with the 8th pick. Now, after all the keepers are taken out, your LaShawn McCoys and Michael Vicks and such and all that, for Drew Brees to fall all the way to the 8th spot in this league was a big surprise. Pretty much because it was widely believed that Craig Imeson was going to go Calvin Johnson and that Kelly Snyder and Nick Larshad were going to end up with Brady and Brees. Instead, Craig threw us all a curveball by going for Brady. That's completely out of character for him. He's usually one of those guys that, I grab my quarterback late. I grab him late. I wait on quarterbacks. And this year, he actually, got tempted by that Tom Brady sure thing allure, and he drafted Brady. And, so then it seemed like, well, then Kelly's going to pick up Brees, but he went Calvin Johnson, which is a good pick there. And then Nick decided that, what, I need a running back more than I need a quarterback here, so he drafted Chris Johnson. And then after that, the free fall began because, the Owen and Greg were next, and they had Cam Newton and Michael Vick. So it turns out that, and kind of coincidentally, both those guys are the ones that got Roethlisberger and Cutler in the 8th. So, but anyway, because of that, he was bound to fall into Eric's lap at number 8, and when factoring in the guys who were kept that would otherwise be early first-round draft picks, to get Brees at number 8 in this league's tremendous value.
Well, again, I have to say I'm thrilled that I got Brees, but I still think if we look at the pre-draft shenanigans for Farside, he could have had Ray Rice, and then he could have had and then he could have had another running back in the 2nd round, and then he could have had Phillip Rivers or Ryan in the 3rd round,
and even Roethlisberger or Schaub Cutler.
So I have to say that the gratitude that I have to give for getting Drew Brees has to go to Nick for making the pre-draft moves that he did. I think that overall, if you look at the draft that he had, it was a pretty good draft. But had he actually been willing to not go after Demaryius Thomas and made all the rest of his moves, he would have ended up with Ray Rice and a great quarterback in the 3rd round. I think his team we'd be sitting looking at his team as a 9-win team going into the season.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more at the team previews, but that is true. It wasn't the best pre-draft management, but once he drafted, he did pretty good with what he had.
That's how I ended up with Brees. But you know what? As great of a value as Brees was, we both agreed that was not anywhere near the best overall steal of the draft. The best overall steal of the draft, I think, happened because of some moronic late 1st round, early 2nd round maneuvering and picks.
Cliffhanger.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the number 1 steal of this draft, and then we'll talk about those that would be stretches or reaches as well. So we'll be right back, and you can kind of chew on that while you wait.
Really?